Thank you. And I was actually going to tell you guys how Christy got started with the American Cancer Society and with the Relay for Life, because she's doing such a great job. And she did get started because I asked her, and she told you that. But I don't know if you guys know why, and I didn't find out why she agreed to help until several months of her volunteer work on my Relay for Life committee. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about why she's involved in a minute here. I thought a lot about what to talk to you all about. Many of you do know me from a couple years ago when I chaired this event. I lived in the Upper Keys for 5 years. And we all have stories. Every single one of these white paper bags represents a person who is fighting or is being remembered after his or her fight. And all of those people have a story, and that goes for me too. I don't talk about it much, and I've never spoken about it so publicly, but if you'll indulge me for a couple of minutes, I'd like to share with you my story. It's mine and it's my family's. I've been speaking to a genetic counselor at the Sylvester Cancer Center in Miami, and to do that you need what's called a family tree. I knew about my family history, but I had never actually seen it all laid out like that before. My dad's side has a couple instances of cancer, none of it really killed anybody. But my mom's side is a different story. From as high on that tree as you can see, it forms a straight line and it hits and kills every single woman along the way. And right now it's pointed directly at me. My mom's mom died when my mom was 16 years old. I never knew her. And my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer for the first time when I was 15 years old, and that kicked off her 11-year battle. First, it was a malignant lump in her breast, lumpectomy, radiation, chemotherapy, and it went away. Then another lump in her other breast, and we were told this was good news because it wasn't a recurrence and the same strategy worked. Lumpectomy, radiation, treatment, it went away. And then it was a reoccurrence in her first breast, and she had her lymph nodes removed, and chemotherapy and treatment continued, and it happened over and over. And you like how I glossed over the treatment there? Most of us have felt or seen how hard it really is. Chemotherapy robs you of your energy, your color, your appetite. For women, cancer robs them of the very thing society focuses on as standards of beauty: their hair, their fingernails, clear skins, and sometimes their breasts. During the 11 years my mom fought cancer, I tried, but I did fail as a daughter and as a support system a couple of times. The first one I can remember was when she asked me to help her run a comb through her hair because the pieces falling out were bunching up and bothering her in the back. And I sat behind her on her bed and combing away, and as chunks of it came loose, I started to cry silently so she wouldn't know I was losing it, because she didn't ask for much and I really wanted to do it. And I didn't succeed there either. I didn't handle it very well, being confronted by such physical, tangible evidence of the treatment for my mom's disease. There was a little break, never quite a remission, but a break after all the breast lumps and treatments. And then my junior year of college, big news again, cervical and ovarian. Major surgery. She lost about 40 pounds, and it wasn't even because she couldn't eat or anything. That was the weight of all the cancerous stuff that they had to remove from her abdomen. And then the treatment cycle started again. Her hair hadn't even gotten to her shoulders yet, and that time we just shaved it all off before it had a chance to fall out. At one point, she had a horrible reaction to a new kind of chemotherapy. It was previously undocumented. She actually made it into the medical books, and the best way to describe it is an allergic reaction. So she got all the horrible side effects of chemotherapy times 20, and then she had a rash all over her body. We weren't sure she was going to make it through that, and I think that's the first time she wasn't sure she'd make it either. There was another brief reprieve while I finished college, and I moved back home, and I did something lots of college grads do. You attend bar for a year while you look for your real job. And I was making a scotch and soda one day in the middle of an evening shift when my mom called and did something kind of stupid. She said she had news but wouldn't tell me what it was, and I wasn't going to scoop ice and pour drinks for another 4 hours with that in the back of my mind. She'd known for a while something was wrong. She'd gone to the doctor that day, and so I made her tell me. And the breast cancer had metastasized to her brain. After that came lots of really creative chemotherapy. They ran a tube up and squirted chemo directly onto her brain. They put screws in her head and a port in her chest. And the brain tumors behaved exactly like all the other tumors had during the entire battle. Her cancers always reacted terrifically, really well to chemotherapy and treatment. She's beaten dozens and dozens of tumors. The problem was every time, new ones kept coming back. Sometime in the middle of this, she found the time to get inspired and start a Relay for Life team. These American Cancer Society staff partners would have been proud of her strategy. Things are a little different now, but in my parents' town back then, the relay wasn't a big party like we're having here. It was literally a race. The vast majority of fundraising was based on walkers and runners collecting sponsorships per lap. So my mom recruited every distance runner she knew, and they formed the team Hyman's Hope, and of course she blew all the other teams out of the water. She continued treatment while I found my job in the Keys. She didn't want me to go, but when the day came and my dad decided to photograph it, she was so sad she refused to smile for any of the photos. And I still have them, they're great. As she continued to fight the brain tumors, I gained the luxury of distance. My dad and sisters stayed on the front lines. I missed the front lines too, and I had a lot of guilt about leaving, but she didn't want me to put my life on hold while she fought for hers. And she fought so hard. The only time she was able to get down to the Keys and visit me here, she was in a wheelchair. And she spent a day in Key West, and I took her to swim with the dolphins, and that was amazing because they have the echolocation, and they can sense when someone has some stuff that's a little wrong inside, and they wouldn't leave her alone, and she loved every minute of it. And then almost exactly 4 years ago, she started to shut down, and blood transfusions weren't doing it anymore, so she decided to stop. They say it wasn't the cancer exactly that killed her, even though she still had brain tumors. The years and years of insanely stressful treatments had taken their toll. I went home after she accepted that she was dying and had a steady stream of friends coming over, staying with the family for one last visit. She looked so good. I told her, Mom, if you're going to die, at least do me the courtesy of looking like you're going to die because I'm just not accepting this. And so I flew up to Ohio every other weekend for a few months. Took her to a movie. I found out she'd never had a pedicure and made her an appointment, and most of the time I just laid next to her in bed and listened to her breath and smelled her mom's smell and held her hand. And then my dad called and said I needed to get home as soon as possible because her kidneys had failed and this was it. And so I did, just in time to say goodbye before she stopped being lucid for a few days, and then she just stopped living. And she died the day before her 50th birthday. We did the funeral, the burial, and all the stuff you do, and then I came back here and tried to keep on living. And it would be really nice if that was the end of my story, but it was no surprise that my mom tested positive for BRCA1, one of 2 breast cancer genes. I have a cousin who has tested positive, and I have 2 younger sisters to worry about, but none of us have been tested yet. And I'm so scared. But the great thing about Relay for Life is this right here, is I can look around and I can see hundreds of people, and maybe you guys didn't know it at the time, but you're fighting for my sisters and you're fighting for me too. And that brings us back to Christy. We were having a conversation about cancer in our families, and she doesn't have any. And when I asked her why she gave so much time and energy to this, she said, Jamie, I'm fighting for your life in the future. So I want to thank all of you for fighting for my life in the future and my sister's lives and all the millions of others out there fighting cancer right now, and those of us who will keep on fighting until we raise enough money to get the right research and find a cure for this thing and beat it already. Even though a lot of the people represented by these luminaries are gone, you guys being here fighting and hoping makes the battle against cancer less about death and more about life. So thank you for letting me share my story, and thank you for sharing the stories of your loved ones represented by this circle of candles, and by your very presence here fighting the good fight and holding on to hope.